So then we got Ant-Man, Scott Lang taking on Kitty Pryde. Who wins? Let's find out. Scott Lang is the second man to take up the mantle of the Ant-Man, and he's been an influential member of both the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. Scott's primary power is size and density manipulation, which he achieves by utilizing PIM particles. He's able to shrink down so small that it can easily slide into a bank vault, sneak up on Taskmaster, break into Iron Man's home, and even shrink so small that it can enter someone's bloodstream. Ant-Man is also able to shrink small surprisingly fast too, so it can dodge bullets, and he's even disabled a gun before his opponent could even pull the trigger. When Scott shrinks down, he not only maintains his human-sized strength and durability, but he even recently discovered how to use the PIM particles to actually increase his strength and density as he gets smaller. Ant-Man isn't just able to control his own size and density though. He's also able to control other people's sizes. Like in a fight, he was even able to turn a giant monster into a tiny one in order to easily defeat it. Now Scott also has the ability to communicate with ants, and he essentially always has an army at his disposal. He's been able to engulf people in ants, summon ants to create giant fists and weapons, and even knock down a 2-ton steel door. Finally, Ant-Man was even able to defeat Dr. Doom. Seriously, this really happened. He defeated Doom, which is just very, very impressive. Then, in the corner of Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde, aka Shadowcat, is a mutant gifted with the ability to become intangible and phase her entire body through solid material. A talented prodigy, she became the poster child of the X-Men, eventually reaching maturity and becoming one of the team's leaders. Kitty Pryde has the ability to phase through solid matter by allowing the molecules of her body to travel through the space between the molecules of whatever solid object she's traveling through. Originally, she believed that she had to hold her breath while phasing through objects, but after the initial shock wore off, she learned that she can phase through objects while breathing and talking. She can also cause other people or objects to turn intangible, and is able to kill people by phasing them into solid objects and then releasing them, causing them to solidify while still within the object. She's even trained herself to instantly assume her intangible state at any indication of danger, such as a gunshot noise, in order to protect herself. Kitty can disrupt electronic devices by phasing through them without hurting herself, and she can even phase and levitate herself and walk on air, as simply as if she was walking up a flight of stairs. According to the book The Science of the X-Men, a theory that could potentially explain Kitty Pryde's powers is that of spintronics. Basically, what that theory is based on is electrostatic repulsion, which is the force that keeps subatomic objects from passing through one another. Electrons naturally repel each other. Instead of a positive or negative charge, electrons have what is called a spin, which is based on a random pattern up and down. If Kitty can rearrange her molecules into an organized manner so that they're polarized with the objects she's trying to pass through, then she can pull her molecules through objects by controlling the spin on all the particles in her body. Kitty's also an extremely adept martial artist, and has mastered multiple forms of martial arts, including karate, aikido, ninjutsu, and Krav Maga, and has been trained by Wolverine and Nightcrawler. So who wins? Well, let's break it down. Now, this is a really interesting matchup, and honestly, one or both of them are going to have a hard time landing punches. Because on one end, Kitty Pryde can turn intangible, and make it pretty much impossible for Scott to get a good hit on her. But on the other hand, Kitty can't get a good hit on Scott either, if she can't even see him coming. So I think the first place we should start is taking a look at Kitty Pryde and her powers. Because so many people think that Kitty and her phasing abilities are more just defensive in nature. They're not. In fact, she's potentially one of the most dangerous and deadly X-Men if she was using her powers to kill. I mean, she can easily phase someone into a wall and leave them there, essentially cutting them in half if she's so pleased. In fact, in alternate universes, she's used her phasing ability to rip out Emma Frost's heart, and effectively lobotomized Wolverine by leaving her hand phased inside his head. She even briefly fought the Ultimate Galactus by growing with Pym particles, then phasing through him and trying to disrupt his technology. She didn't defeat him on her own, but she did trade a few blows with him. Basically, Kitty's a legitimate threat, and doesn't just use her powers for the defense. But just because she's secretly really powerful, that doesn't necessarily mean she wins this fight, because it's kinda hard to hit something that you can't see. Now, you might say it's just as hard to hit something that you can't actually touch, and that's true. Valid point. And I guess you could say that this fight would just end in a draw, with Ant-Man staying shrunk forever, and Kitty Pryde staying intangible forever, and no one wins and no one loses. Yeah, I guess that's one possible way this fight could play out. But it's a whole lot more likely that they'll revert back and forth from intangible and shrunken to normal throughout the fight. And I'm gonna prove why it's a whole lot more dangerous for Kitty to revert back to normal than for Scott. Because here's the thing, if Kitty tries to solidify while inside something, that's not gonna work out too well for her. Two things can't occupy the same space at the same time, and something's gonna have to give. And that something is Kitty. Now, this rarely ever happens to her, because she can clearly see if she's inside something, but what if she can't see if something is inside her? Basically, what I'm asking is, what do you think will happen if Kitty solidifies while Ant-Man was inside of her? Whether it be her head, her heart, her liver, or even just her leg, she's gonna feel it. It doesn't even have to be Ant-Man inside of her. You see, you gotta remember that Scott essentially always has an army at his disposal at all times. Granted, it's an army of ants, but in this situation, it's really one of the best armies that you could ask for. Because the same situation of Kitty solidifying while Ant-Man is inside of her applies while an army of ants is all around her. It wouldn't work out too well for her. And it's not like Kitty can prevent Scott from phasing by disrupting his technology, as just like Hank Pym, because Scott has spent so much time around Pym particles, he can grow and shrink automatically, just by thinking about it. It's even possible that because Scott figured out the true power of the Pym particles, Kitty's phasing ability won't have any use on him at all. Basically, what I mean is this. It bothered Scott that Giant Man seemed stronger and more durable than mere size could account for. And likewise, while in Ant-Man form, he retained normal size strength and durability, even though he was much, much smaller. So Scott did some research and studied the history of the Pym particles, and learned that there isn't just a size axis of the Pym particles, but actually 3 axes that govern strength and durability, an X, Y, and Z axis. So like Vision's density altering powers are just on a different axis from Ant-Man's size changing powers. Now, we've never really seen Scott mess around with this, and I definitely don't want to make this the crux of my argument, but I just think it's an interesting idea. So, at the end of the day, here's what it comes down to. Ant-Man and Kitty Pryde both have dangerous powers, but Ant-Man's gonna be a whole lot more dangerous to Kitty while she's intangible than Kitty will while he's shrunken. At least, that's just the way I see it. Ant-Man wins. But what do y'all think? I would love to hear your thoughts, so sign off in the comments down below. Also, be sure to subscribe button for more videos just one every single weekday, and I'll see you next time.